Memoriapolis promises to be a city builder for the ages, where your city spans from Antiquity through the Age of Enlightenment. How does this unique take on the city builder genre fare? Watch on and find out. My name is Thoraxe, and this is Strategy for Busy People. If you've got a few minutes, I'll tell you what to play. Note, this review was originally written in January 2025, and there may have been significant game updates since then. You know that I am a fan of city builders, and I've reviewed quite a few on Strategy for Busy People. This time we're looking at Memoriapolis by 5 PM Studio. I've got 7.5 hours in this game. Earlier this year, I reviewed Manor Lords, which was just dropped into early access, and I will probably revisit it now that it's had some baking time. But I just couldn't keep my hands out of the early access cookie jar, and Memoriapolis caught my eye as offering yet another interesting take on the very old era of history city building thing. In Memoriapolis, you start with an ancient town center and start to build things up, following a reasonably common set of city builder tropes. In the earliest game periods, you were concerned with very basic resources like food, wood, stone, clay, and sand. Your first step after establishing your city center is to get your production lines up and running. You might then assume that you would also need to build housing, but you would be mistaken because you don't build any housing in Memoriapolis. That's right. Housing comes in the form of districts that spawn automatically near key buildings that you plop down. At first, your city center is the only real building you have, so some dwellings spawn near it out of a matter of necessity. You quickly build the architectural office, which lets you start to amass blueprints, and blueprints are used to unlock other buildings. One of those key types of buildings are called cultural buildings. These buildings are associated with one of 6 specific categories. When you place cultural buildings, the game starts to bring factions into play. Factions are groups of residents who are aligned with one of the 6 specific categories, and by placing their buildings and addressing their in-game needs, those factions start to produce cultural radiance points. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, remember that this game is really early in its early access, so when I say that the entire faction system is still not fully baked, I'm being a little bit generous. I pretty much ignored factions completely, only in the sense that I clicked yes whenever I was able to after a faction brought me a demand, and it didn't seem to do all that much to impact the game. And then there were times when I couldn't meet their demand because of some other game mechanic that I'd describe, or I just plain missed the notification. That didn't seem to have much of a penalty, so I'm not entirely sure what the expectation is for factions to really impact your gameplay. Anyway, as you build these cultural buildings, they have their own attractiveness, which causes people to move into the area around the cultural building, which also contributes to raising your population. Like some other city builders, as you hit various resource and population milestones, you can level up your town center. Leveling up your town center causes your building radius to expand. Yes, you can't just plop things down wherever you want in this game. You can only build things within a specific radius of your town center. You also get access to another building type that can expand your building radius. As you can see, in the early game, you end up expanding your building areas to enable you to fetch specific resources with your resource collection buildings. Most of your production buildings claim to have some negative attractiveness bonus to them, but honestly, it didn't really seem to impact my game either. I ended up with this huge production area right next to a pretty well-populated town area, so I'm not really sure what that was all about. Every building you want to place requires workers to both construct it and to work at it. Your population slowly generates workers, and often I found myself just waiting until I had enough resources or workers to construct the next thing I wanted to construct. That's a little boring, but not all that unexpected in the genre. You also have some specific service buildings that are associated with each of the ages that enable various game mechanics to be used. As an example, in the Antiquity period you can build the Senate, which should remind you of Rome. The Senate enables you to enact decrees that might impact production or satisfaction, and often a request comes from a faction to enact one or another of a pile of decrees. Let's talk about satisfaction for a moment. In addition to the 6 cultures, there are 5 satisfaction categories. Most buildings you construct will produce satisfaction in at least one of these categories. When first building new service or culture buildings, you can also pick additional satisfactions that are generated by the building. While a production culture building often generates health satisfaction, it may also be capable of generating safety or creativity. I often found it funny to set up the dungeon so that it generated belonging. Anyway, if you don't keep the satisfaction ratings high enough, bad things can happen in your district. There might be riots, or thieves, or whatever. Honestly, all of this stuff really needs a good pass at balancing still, because I didn't really pay much attention to this whole mechanic either, other than spamming whatever buildings I could to numbers go up on the various satisfaction ratings. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about building any roads in this game, because that's all taken care of for you. You also don't have to worry about plumbing, sewage, sanitation, or anything like that. I realize I took a long time to finally start explaining the core game loop, but you needed some of the previous concepts for it to make any sense. Fundamentally, you need to earn blueprints to unlock buildings so that you can construct your city in a way to encourage a faction to build power so that you can unlock a faction's wonders. Once you construct a faction's wonder, you can move your city into the next age, and then the process begins anew because a new set of factions for that new age will move in, and you need to elevate one of them to sufficient power to earn a new wonder and construct it. And, presumably, you'll have to do this 4 times to get through all 4 ages. All the while, you are trying to balance satisfaction, keep people fed, and handle all the typical resource production and manipulation chains that evolve in order to build these more complex buildings. It's not just all stone and wood huts, you know. Presumably, the replayability of this game comes from the fact that each culture has unique buildings and rewards that you get for elevating it in power, and you may want to play through several times to see how you can grow your city differently while focusing on a different culture or cultures each time. Right now, the story mode game only has 1 map, but you can tempt fate by starting your city in various places on that map, none of which seem to have a material impact on your game aside from the proximity to resources and your ability to expand your construction area to reach them. Before I give my final verdict, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Agree with me, disagree with me, or want to see other content? Let me know in the comments below. Want to try this game yourself? Check out my humble affiliate link below. And if you want to support me in making more of these videos, become a patron on Patreon. Your support really makes a difference. The final verdict. As I said, this game is very early in its early access, and a lot of it is still missing. The balancing seems way off, as you can mostly just cruise through without really paying attention to anything. But most of the core mechanics are there, and you might find some bugs or come up with some interesting suggestions, and I'm sure the developers would love to hear from you. On my trademarked 3-point score scale of avoid, meh, and I forgot to eat, the fact that I put almost 8 hours into an unfinished title and then started the same unfinished experience again to try to explore it a little more should tell you that this is at least worth a try for the small price of entry. And with your support, the devs might be able to get those last 2 ages figured out and work on some of the game balancing. But for me, for now, all the fields had been harvested and it was time for a real meal, and I didn't have to cook it on a medieval hearth. I've got a real cooktop, you know.